Aloha, welcome to episode 16 of the Sacred Healer Support Series. Today I'm going to share with you my personal story of how IFS has totally rocked my world. It's been an absolute game changer. Uh, yeah, I was just having a video call with um, a buddy, someone I've been meeting with every Monday for like 5 years now. It's been amazing. And I was just sharing with her how this summer, if you've watched previous videos, you know that I was in a bike accident. And right after that bike accident, I had a choice point. And that choice point was I could go into the victim. There were these parts of me that were like, I'm hurting, oh my God. And other judging parts, you idiot, how could you be so stupid and careless? And you ruined everything. You know, all these parts came up, right? And like, I want my money, and like, I suck. And like, was even blaming my husband for things. And just, yeah, all these parts come up when things go wrong. And I saw the choice point where I could, you know, I comforted those parts like, okay, yes, yeah, you know, you're really hurting. Uh, and so with IFS, internal family systems, you hear the parts, you listen to them, you love them, you acknowledge them, and soothe them and let them be heard, let them be seen, let them be loved, like all of us want to be. But they don't end up running the show. And most of my life, my younger parts have been running the show. So I don't know if you can relate to that, that you have felt like, you know, your emotions get really strong and you get really reactive and you like freak out and you blame others for things, you blame yourself for things, you get highly critical of yourself. Oh my gosh, I had such an intense inner critic. I had so much self-loathing. And yeah, and parts that didn't believe in me, parts that didn't trust me, parts that didn't trust, you know, so much, you know, and these parts, as I discussed in episode 15, get created by events of, you know, usually trauma, things that happen, things that go wrong, that we create these extreme ideas and beliefs about ourselves, others, life, and the world. And so they're just doing their best. They're like trying to manage the situation, trying to make things better. But often they're not. They often make things worse. Not often, but sometimes. My parts are like, no, we don't. We're not often. I'm like, yes, right. Some of you are doing making things better. And I also mentioned in episode 15, like we have parts that are beneficial. They actually really help us. You know, manager, like I have an assistant, a personal assistant. I have healers. I have shamans. I have guides. I have protectors that, you know, really work in my favor. So coming back to this choice point, I was able to instead come into a place of center and calm within myself, have compassion for myself, and activate my inner sacred healer. And that was done from a place of very clear, strong sense of self, capital S self. And I've usually haven't been able to do that very quickly. Usually it takes me days or weeks to shift a situation. Usually I go into a place of like upset and I get depressed, or I go into blame and get reactionary, and I have to work myself out of that place. But because of all the work that I've done with IFS, I have a strong sense of self. And in that tragic moment, or like traumatic, very traumatic experience, myself was able to run the show, take over, saying, okay, we're okay. We're okay. We didn't break anything. You didn't hit your head. You're cut up, you're bruised, but you're okay. And let's see how we can make the best of this situation. And I was able to do that. And that I attribute to IFS, the work that I've done with IFS. And this is one of the main benefits of IFS therapy, is it cultivates this stronger sense of self energy, which is just naturally compassionate, calm, um, creative, present, loving. It's yeah, and that's why I love IFS so much too, is because it's really about love. When it comes down to it, it's about love. It's about loving every part of ourselves, getting to know every part of ourselves that has been hurt, that feels lost, that feels unseen, that feels made wrong. And like a child, like you would with any child that you see hurting, you hear it, you give it attention, you let it feel heard and seen and loved. And when we do that for ourselves, all these parts, they come alive. They reclaim those lost qualities of ourselves. Like, so, okay, let me tell you specifically what has happened for me. I've had two main traumatic events in my life that have really affected me, that have been the main triggers of reactivity, of inability to relate well, of being extremely depressed, of even being suicidal. We can get parts, I mentioned in episode 15, these firefighters that will do extreme action. Results in addictions, in suicidal tendencies. They like get really extreme because they're like freaking out. Oh my God, we're in danger, 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 danger. And so they take extreme action to remove ourselves from that danger, even if it means killing us. And it's crazy. I know it sounds crazy that, oh my God, a part of me wants to kill me to protect me. But yeah, they get these really um, extreme ideas and beliefs about ourselves and about life, that it's like death is safer than being alive. That's what it comes down to. And so, so when I was 5, I felt abandoned. Both of my parents left. Well, my parents split up. So my dad went to live somewhere else, and my mom had cancer, so she was in the hospital. And as a 5-year-old, I just felt both my parents are gone. Like, what happened? And my aunt and uncle came to look after me, and I didn't have a very good experience. I felt, yeah, abandoned, and created these really extreme ideas and beliefs about myself of like, I don't matter, I'm not important, yeah, like nobody loves me, all these things. And so there was a 5-year-old, there is still a 5-year-old in me that, but doesn't feel as abandoned as she once did. Like she used to feel so lost, so sad, so alone. And I've done, in IFS, you have to go in multiple times. And this is why I say that the path of sacred healing requires radical self-love. It's not like, oh, I just have to learn to accept everything about myself and everything will be fine. No, radical self-love means that you love yourself so fiercely that you're willing to do whatever it takes. And, if that means that I have to go inside and do the work to connect with my 5-year-old 5, 7, 10 times before she's fully healed, that's what I'm willing to do. I have clients who are like, oh, this again. Or I've even said that when I was a client, like, oh my God, I've been here. I've been to this 5-year-old so many times again. And it's like, that's another part that's like, feels like, oh, it should be done already. You're taking too long, or, what's wrong with you? And so we work with those parts and like, it's going to take as many times as it takes. That part is really lonely and sad and hurt. And it's like, oh, okay. And as I said in episode 15, like IFS is like, I've experienced it as like this incredible adventure. It's this amazing journey of like exploring and discovering and connecting with these parts and getting to know them and giving them what they didn't get. And So as I said, I've been to that 5-year-old multiple times, hearing her, feeling the pain that she felt so that she doesn't feel alone in that. She doesn't have to carry it by herself anymore. um, Redoing things like, my uncle never came to my show and tell, and that really affected me in a big way. Like to this day, I have that 5-year-old come up like just 2 weeks ago. I was like, nobody wants to see what I have to share. I'm not important. And, she comes up like, I'm 51 years old, 46 years later, she's still showing up. And like, so, if I didn't do IFS work, I would just think that that's my truth. Like, oh, nobody cares about me, I'm not important. But instead, I could recognize it as my 5-year-old. And I went in and I did some work with her on my own. And then I also did some work with her with my therapist. I work with a therapist, have for 8 years. I've had a few different therapists. And I just am a strong advocate of having ongoing therapy because I don't know, I feel like sacred healing is a lifelong journey. We're never done. And the more that I do my work, the freer, the happier, the more loving I become. Like truly, I just, yeah, I was sharing with my buddy also, like I was facing some really intense and extremely overwhelming situation. And I could see how I could totally go into poor me. This sucks. Oh my God, how am I going to do this? And get completely overwhelmed, get completely shut down, get exhausted, not want to face it, want to avoid it, go into blame, all kinds of stuff. I could have gone that way, but it didn't. Instead, myself kind of stepped up, was very present, and said, hey, let's get intentional with this. Who are you committed to being? Yeah, I'm committed to being really present and loving and enjoying the process and trusting and being creative. And, that's who I am. And I was able to, like, yeah, I've got this. We can do this. I love what Glennon Doyle says, we can do hard things. And when we're more resourced, we can do anything. We can face things. We can navigate life's challenges. It's not that life becomes like super easy all the time and we never have to face difficulty. No, life is going to throw stuff at us, but we're so self-resourced that we can meet those challenges with calm and compassion and clarity and presence and creativity, and navigate them with greater ease and enjoyment. That has been my personal experience. And so I mentioned that I had two parts. And so I have many, many parts, but two really deeply wounded parts. And so my 10-year-old, I was in a car accident when I was 10, and I got this big gash in my eye. I went to school with like these big stitches, and yeah, it wasn't a pretty sight, obviously. And I went to school, and the movie Exorcist had just come out. And just as I'm walking onto the school grounds, like I'm just walking out of the parking lot onto the sidewalk, I remember so clearly these two kids seeing me and going, ah, oh my God, and freaking out and saying, The Exorcist, and running away. Completely ostracized and bullied. And I just remember standing at the fence, oh, quite a few feet from the playground, and just being on my own. So of course, this 10-year-old is devastated. Oh my God, so horrible. It's really deep pain of like, I don't belong, I'm not liked, nobody wants to play with me. So it just amplifies this already wound from 5-year-old. I'm not important, I don't matter, so it gets compounded. So, and I forgot to finish my story about the 5-year-old, the show and tell. When my uncle didn't show up, I got to go back there and and see her show and tell, and be there for her, and redo that situation and give her the missing experience, which they talk a lot about in Hakomi, if you know Hakomi. So in IFS, you can also do that with yourself. In Hakomi, you do that for the other. You give that missing experience to the other. And an IFS therapist often will do that as well. A lot of our wounds happen in relationships, so they have to happen. So the healing has to happen in relationship. Okay, I'm all over the place. I hope you can follow me. So I was also able to go back for my 10-year-old. I was able to go back to that playground, really be with her, hear her, see how horrible that was, and acknowledge that for her. Like, oh my God, sweetheart, you should not have had to experience that. That was horrible. You didn't deserve that. You are a beautiful, precious being. And I got to like console her and give her all the love that she never got. And then I actually went and called all the kids together on the playground. We created a circle and actually did a healing circle on my 10-year-old. I'm feeling a little touched already. Still because of that. Like, she was in the middle, and I was like, she didn't deserve that. She was hurting. She was in an accident. She needed love and healing. So everyone come around, gather around. And the teachers too back then didn't educate the kids about being nice to me. Like, it flabbergasted me. People are amazing, and they drive me crazy sometimes. Like, how mean we can be, right? It's so sad. And I've come to know from a healing journey that hurting people hurt others. And that's why people are mean. And so I've been able to grow compassion for people who hurt others, and realize that, as Richard Schwartz says, Dick Schwartz says, he has a book called No Bad Parts, that, bullies are just hurting themselves. My aunt told me a story about a friend of hers. Oh, actually, no, it's one of my cousins. Their son was bullied, and so the mom, my cousin's wife, instead of like getting him in trouble, it befriended that bully, and adopted him into their family, because obviously he was from a broken family, and he didn't have a great family life. Like, that's amazing. Like, that's what we can do for ourselves, is to meet those parts in ourselves with love, and invite them into our family. We have this internal family. I call it my council. I experience it as a circle, like the circle of parts all around me, and they're becoming more and more connected, more and more harmonized, more and more as a team, working together. That's one of the amazing benefits of IFS. Our parts become our allies. And if we don't do that, these parts run amok. They like create havoc in our lives. They act out, they react, they have all these extreme emotions and feelings and thoughts that aren't helpful. And I just want you to know from personal experience that we can change that. That sacred healing is standing in the knowing that we can heal. And IFS is one of the ways. It's not the way, as I've said in previous videos. There's multiple ways to heal, and all are valid. It's what works for you, and each individual needs to find their own path, their own journey, in the different modalities, the different practitioners, because it's really not about the modality. If the relationship isn't there, it's not going to work. It's really about the relationship and the quality of presence and connection, and then the modality can work. Anyway, the last thing I want to say is that, I had a very active suicidal part that tried to take me out because I was in so much pain, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I felt completely broken. I was in agony. That the suicidal part decided, we need to get out of here. this, you can't handle this. You're getting fried. Your system is frying. It's just way too much to handle. And so they tried to take me out. And by grace, they didn't. I was saved, like literally saved. And I had the amazing opportunity to have a second chance at life. And I decided from that point that if I was going to live, I needed to make my life worth living. And that in order to do that, I needed to love myself. And I became really clear that love was at the heart of healing, that love was everything. And so I started to do everything in my power to heal, to grow my love. And IFS has been a huge part of my healing path. So there you have it. I hope that inspires you. If you're struggling with any parts of you that you feel are against you, like if you often feel like your own worst enemy, you're super hypercritical of yourself, you judge yourself, you don't trust yourself, you doubt yourself, know that you can do the work to heal those parts so that they don't work against you anymore, and instead they become your greatest allies. And so I'd love to hear your comments. Feel free to send me any questions, post any questions you have. Yeah, and just know that healing is possible, and that it's worth every effort that it takes to heal. And sometimes it requires like some fierce action, some fierce loving, radical love, radical self-love, and it's possible, and you're worth it. Blessings.